Hello again. This video series was spurred by a conversation with my friend Carl, who, has healthy skepticism and I believe a little bit of unhealthy skepticism. Very intelligent guy and a good guy. So none of this is in any way derogatory to you, Carl, if you are listening or watching, right? It's just conversation spurs ideas, and hopefully ideas are acted on in a meaningful and productive way that increases the net good. So let's talk about what if this is a false disclosure? What do I mean by false disclosure? Well, okay, one idea that I've heard from several people is, they've had this stuff all along, and instead of disclosing it, they're sort of creating this false disclosure, trying to make people think that the reason why they're disclosing it is that this data is coming out now, but it's actually a way for them to sort of slowly dole it out. Guess what? Even if that's true, the actionable steps that we need to take are the same, because disclosure from one intent is still disclosure. Let that sink in a moment. Let's think about this. Let's take two actions. Treating an injury and providing mental comfort, perhaps by talking nicely to someone while you bandage them or you help them with a broken limb or something like that. Or assaulting someone with a dangerous weapon, a knife, a club, something like that, right? Think about this. You help someone is in the kitchen doing a job in a restaurant and they slash their forearm. And because they're your friend and you're concerned and you're compassionate and you have some medical training, you say, hey, let me help you, and you have training. You're like, all right, stop the bleeding, let's put pressure, let's put a cloth over there, and while we're at it, I'm going to talk to you nicely. Hey man, calm down, it'll be okay, just keep putting pressure. I'm going to call an ambulance, that type of stuff. You are providing help out of compassion, empathy, whatnot. Great. You see you're a different person. You have a different relationship with the injured party. You don't like that person. You never like that person. But you want to impress the boss, okay, on what a take charge guy or girl you are. And you come up and you, again, put a cloth up there. You say, hey man, put a bandage on. You don't really like the guy, but you talk to him in a conciliatory tone. Hey, it'll be okay. I'm going to call an ambulance. Okay, so although the two motivations are vastly different, you still are taking very similar action. Now, one person might be a little better at it, one person might try a little harder, okay, but you are still providing significant help to that injured person, and you may make a huge difference in their condition, right? Either way. As opposed to someone who doesn't take action because he thinks it's not worth taking, or, she thinks, well, I'm not an EMT. You see? Now, the other instance is, let's say you have a young adult. Let's say he's 19, and he's a very angry, malevolent person, and he doesn't like you, and he picks up a knife and he starts coming at you with that knife. And you're a trained martial artist. Maybe you pick up a chair or something like that, or you get your hands up and you manage to whack the knife out of his hand with that chair, and you grab onto him, you take him down, and you do something. You assume control of the situation, and hopefully you understand the law. So once you've disarmed this person and you've got them in control, you're not allowed to try to kill them, right? And that person had a malicious intent, and you defended yourself. Now, different kid, 19 years old, equal height, equal build, has a form of autism, and he's having an episode where he acts out and he picks up that sharp knife and he comes at you with the same type of attack. I mean, although the intent is different, your response is going to be very close. Now, if you know that that kid is autistic, you still have to not get stabbed by the knife. You still have to assume control of that person, and the law kind of treats you the same. Once you disarm that person and you get in a control position, maybe a mount or something, you're not allowed to kill that person. Okay? So, again, if the government is disclosing a little bit now because they think it's the right time, as opposed to, like, one thing I think is very likely is that, there have been miniature disclosures, often, inadvertent people leaking the information out. There has some of this stuff, some of the reason why we're having so many congressional hearings and things like that is because there were FIFA lawsuits and requests. Lou Elizondo retired a government job, and I assume he gave up a pension to do this, and he's not a young man, because he felt it was the right thing to do, and that led to one thing, and that led to another, and that led to somebody, releasing that Navy footage, and that led to people interviewing those pilots and so on and so forth. Okay, so I believe that it is, what's happening now is a result of multiple things, multiple occurrences, multiple actions by multiple people that may or may not have had same motivations, and oftentimes one whistleblower, one incident leads to, for example, the Navy footage was first leaked, and a couple of years before it actually became a news item. I know because I was one of the people talking about it, and my friend Trifton, when I talked about it, looked like he was going to get violent, and he's not a violent man, and he's not capable of beating me up, but he looked like he was going to pounce on me. Then, a couple of years pass, and it's kind of more of an accepted news item, and then the 60 Minutes interview happened, and then that caused Avi Loeb to start the Galileo project, and that caused other science. And it's actually something I predicted in my book that I wrote, but probably will never get published. Man, I wish a publisher would talk to me. Once a thing happens, it inspires other things, and that creates multiple points of inspiration. That creates reactions, like Mick West saying, "This is nonsense," and Michio Kaku saying, "No, the burden of proof is on those of you that say that nothing is happening." And Neil deGrasse Tyson slowly begins to open that mind of his that, I think was very closed on the topic, because he knows, for example, Michio Kaku is no dummy, and he knows that those Navy aircraft carrier pilots are not unreliable witnesses, right? And all those, you have to look at Occam's razor. It cuts both ways, all right? Yes, of course, there are unreliable witnesses. Of course, there are people misreporting things by accident, perhaps on purpose. But I think everybody with a mind knows right now that when an FA-18 Hornet goes up, it doesn't go up alone. It's tracked by multiple radars and cameras. It has its own radar and cameras. It's got two people over it. It's always got another airplane with it, if not a squadron, and that there is a lot of data there. And we know that, of course, most of that is classified. But I think I'm getting a little sidetracked here. I'm getting a little excited, okay? Folks, there is something going on, okay? If the government is doing, sort of going along with some aspects of this disclosure because of public pressure, because of preponderance of evidence, because of public interest. Remember, Congress started asking for this information. If that's why it's happening, it's still disclosure. If it's happening because this is some sort of planned and orchestrated event where both Republicans and Democrats and independents, who are all at each other's throats, are now pretending to ask for this information when they were told, yeah, we're going to release this information, but first you got to act like you're trying to wring it out of us, right? And, at this point, Mick West has to be in collaboration with the F-18 pilots. Like, you're going to release what you said, and you're going to act like you don't believe it. Okay? That's actually, according to Occam's razor, not parsimonious. It's not very likely. Okay? But even if all that is true, if there is a disclosure or a series of titrated disclosures coming up, our actions are the same. We put pressure on our elected officials. We talk to members of the military that we know. We write letters. We talk to each other, and we generate public interest. We fill out Freedom of Information Act requests, and so on and so forth. And more importantly, we talk to academic institutions and scientists. And if you are a scientist or an educator, what you do is you listen to what Avi Loeb said when he said, the sky is not classified. We do our own research. We start collating our own data. We can donate to things like the Galileo project, or if we don't trust it, we can start our own projects. We can start sharing data via the internet. Okay? And if, for example, if we independently discover data that has been classified, and we do it from multiple sources and we share it, at some point it becomes the public domain, and it gets easier for elected officials and citizens and enthusiasts to requisition and request that information be declassified. All right? Also, once you know a thing is real or possible, it becomes easier to replicate or imitate it. Think about, I think his name was Benjamin Banneker, the first guy who did a 4-minute mile. It was thought that that was impossible, and if you did it, you may die. Once he did it, I think within a month, multiple people did it because they knew it was possible. And they knew what direction to move in. Now, it's actually a very common thing. Folks, interject enthusiasm, sanity, caution, optimism, and omnidirectional awareness and action. We can do this if we stay calm yet enthusiastic, if we retain proper caution yet remain optimistic and goal-oriented. All right? We can do this. Have a good night.